You're about to meet the voice of American Idol. You'll know what I mean in just a second. I'm Bennett Shearer, and I want you to be the judge. Leave a like, comment, a rating, review, and if you want to be a true insider, hit that subscribe button right now. All right, let me let you in on my call with Mark Thompson.
It's so fun to get a chance to talk to you, and I love that you remember Idol and some of this other stuff that I've done.
How appropriate that you are our first Idol insider, because you were often the first voice that we would hear at the beginning of an American Idol episode.
That's right. It was a scene setter. You know, it was kind of like that. Last night, they sang their hearts out. Tonight, one goes home. Who stays? Who goes? Find out next, live on American Idol. And then they would bump the music. I love that music, didn't you? The Idol music.
Favorite theme song, which I believe you might have.
I have the stinger. I thought, well, I might have this too. Tonight, Bennett talks Idol. American Idol. A look back. I just found that on the fly. That's so cool. That's just good luck that we have it at all.
I just want to mention really quickly, a Simon Fuller show other than Idol is So You Think You Can Dance, and you did announce...
Please welcome your host, Kat Deely.
But if people listen to the theme song, which is heard across the world... Does that sound familiar?
Oh my God, that's a great grab. You're unbelievable. That's a great grab.
Just look at how much Mark Thompson has touched in entertainment.
I know you're kind of saying that seriously, which makes me laugh. I feel like such a little cog in this machine, but I have to tell you, it really flatters me that you picked this stuff out. I mean, you've got a great ear, and I love that you've just jumped into this pool. And if you jump in and swim around, there is all that stuff out there. That's really cool. Thank you.
I want to go back to the beginning of this journey, hosting shows, being an announcer, journalist, weatherman, so many other titles. How did you first get involved with this show, American Idol?
Well, I had, as you say, been voicing a bunch of stuff for Fox. A lot of their big event stuff I was doing. A lot of, the ladies and gentlemen. So I was kind of in that crew. Plus, I was narrating a lot of stuff, and I was doing opens and teases for a lot of shows. You know what I mean? Some of them were funny, like next, the group reflects on the wild things that happen behind the scenes on 90210, and some of the more dramatic stuff, like When Good Pets Go Bad and all of that stuff. So when Idol came along, if you were going to have an announce at the beginning, it seemed to make sense. And there used to be announced throughout. In the early seasons, there was more announced. Ryan likes to do a lot of stuff himself. So Ryan, I used to give him a hard time, but it's like, Ryan, you're just taking all my stuff. And he did. And eventually he did take all of it. And so when you had that much announce, I think the feeling was on the part of producers and executives, let's get this guy who we know is a known quantity and we know can hit the ball. And there might have been guys who could hit the ball harder or faster. I don't know. And I'm just saying that they had in me someone that they felt they had confidence in. And so that, I think, is how I ended up with it, because I was already in their ecosystem,
Those top of the show last nights might have gone over the seasons, but season 8, this is the first time that we heard this.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your judges and your host, Ryan Seacrest.
Do you remember getting that call to take it up to another level with the judges and Ryan?
A lot of that stuff was done in pre-tape, believe it or not. I mean, it's a big live show, but a lot of the stuff is rolled in. It's taped ahead of time. So I remember getting essentially a sheet, and we recorded it at Levels, I believe is where we recorded all the Idol stuff here in Hollywood. This is kind of just voiceover stuff, but maybe somebody will appreciate it. We did a bunch of versions of those intros, right? You do a, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ryan Seacrest. And you can't hear the crowd, the music, so then you'll give them 3 different versions of that. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome. Then you go, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ryan. You do all the different versions that they may want, and then producers take all those things. And this is, as I say, fairly typical in voiceover, where you'll give them options on a line, and then they'll decide, what they want. And so those intros of the judges and Ryan, they were done that way. So pre-recorded, and then they decided from that menu of options I gave them for each read and each intro which ones they wanted.
In the series finale, we actually hadn't heard your voice for a couple seasons for the judges' intros, but they brought you back for the season 15 finale. And so it was great to kind of go out with a bang for you, I'm sure, and introduce everybody to the final show.
That was one of the most emotional shows
Wow.
I've ever attended, and one of the most emotional moments, because, when Idol started, we knew it was a phenomenon, Pop Idol in Great Britain. And when I say we, I mean those of us who were, tangentially involved in Idol, or even really very much involved in Idol. And I will say this, I was, you could say, just the announcer in one sense, but I was very close to everybody involved in the production. So Nigel, who's the executive producer, and Kenny, the other executive producer, and Simon. I mean, I used to have meals with Simon all the time, and we would text back and forth during World Cup, and I would visit with Randy and Simon and Paula in the breaks. This is in the early days when that was your judging crew. And so there was a quality of hanging out and there being almost a community, a little mini community. I did a bunch of karaoke parties in my house with all the Idol people there. So imagine that degree of bonding that had occurred. And then slowly what happened is the show, and actually it wasn't that slowly, as you well know, it got popular. And then everybody got, huge pop-out trailers and bigger cars. And Seacrest is driving some, Mercedes that there are only 5 of them made in the world. And then Simon is pulling out of the lot in a Bugatti. And you just get the sense that Randy's got all these offers. And, there's an industry and a celebrity associated with Idol that hadn't existed in the very early days. So anyway, through that, the relationships evolve and the show evolves and it becomes this juggernaut. And then they launch X Factor also. And all of this stuff happened. And then knockoff shows like The Voice. Idol became this industry that many were trying to either be part of, to capitalize on commercially, or to create their own little knockoff version. So through all of that, you lose the magic of the family that existed at the very beginning. And so the last show that you're talking about that I was involved on Fox, it was powerful, man. It was really emotional. It was real. I remember standing on that stage and the balloons and the confetti and everything, and it was truly emotional. Yeah. So you're so cool to remember that, or to pick up on the fact that it might have been an emotional thing, because it was really profoundly emotional. That particular show. You're right.
Ladies and gentlemen, live from the Dolby Theater right here in Hollywood, welcome to the season 15 finale of American Idol.
American Idol is all about giving kids their big break. So I wanted to ask you, what was your first career break?
When I was a college student, I worked on the college radio station. I wanted to be on the radio, and I wasn't sure how to make that happen. So you send out tapes and all that. So my desire was intense. My ambition was burning, and I was ready to do anything. And I mean, any shift, any small podunk station, anywhere to try to get on the air. And so when I think about career, I wanted that so badly to begin my career, and to get out of the laboratory of college radio and to get onto commercial radio. And so in a way, I might look at that as my big break. It all depends what you mean by big break. So when I got on suburban radio stations in Washington, D.C., which is a big market and a big place, that might have been my big break. And I was ready for that. My work was really good. I was ready for that moment, But then when you get to television and other stuff, it's a question of getting on TV. And I might say that I was a DJ in Buffalo, New York. And then there was an opening for a weather guy, and I had a science background in college. And I thought, if I can just impress these guys with the on air. So I did a reel and all that stuff, meaning I shot a kind of demo reel, and I got them there, and they, with a staff meteorologist, trained me in the meteorology of it. So that might have been the big break, because I went from Buffalo, then to Denver, then to San Francisco, and then to Los Angeles. In Los Angeles, I had a development deal for my own show, in addition to doing the weather and the local news. So for my own show on the network. So that might have been the big, what I'm saying? It's tough to say. But when you're a young person and you're just trying to get a foot into the industry, just hear me, just hear my stuff, just listen. I think that break, maybe there's nothing like that. You know what I mean? It's a really, I don't mean to read too much into your question, but I think it's an interesting question, like where in someone's life of work or whatever they're into. It may not be literally a profession, but sort of their life of endeavors that they really care about. Where is that inflection moment? Where is that thing, that time where the emotion of wanting and trying and working is somehow met with opportunity? That's a really cool question. And I think all of us could answer it in different ways, depending on when we buzz into the career, right?
Yeah, you've had an amazing trajectory. I feel like for you, it sounds like you just keep going up and up and hitting these moments where you think, wow, I've done this, I've done that. And to go from college radio now, being in TV and doing announcing and sort of hitting all these different spots, right? I'm sure you just are looking around and going, you were that kid with a dream, and then you kind of keep evolving and trying different things, achieving different things. Here we are talking, and it's incredible.
Well, when I listen to you frame it that way, it sounds really great. When I'm living it, and I think a lot of us are sort of, when we look at our lives, we go, you don't live it that way. You feel sort of like, I really want to get this, and that turned out, oh my God, I really like to get this, and I'm reading for that, and I'm trying for this, and I'm trying to produce this show and get involved in producing. And so, you're sadly, probably, you're not stopping and smelling the roses or enjoying the moment. Most of us don't live in the moment. We live in aspiration, right? But when you reflect on it, and certainly, you're great, because you're great for me, because you make me feel, good about that stuff. But you're right. I should be, when I reflect, really happy with the stuff that I was part of, because it was a very, very exciting time.
And you also always knew how to add a fun twist to things. I want to pull up this clip real quick.
His voice is so rich, they even use him for voiceovers on network shows. But he's so good at the weather that he doesn't even need his voice.
I get in my world, get lost in it. I'm tired of running.
I love it, Mark.
You know what,
That's Lauren Sanchez, right?
How are you handling all this fame?
There she
Seriously.
is, Lauren.
How are you handling all the overnight success?
You'll have to call my agent.
How are you handling all the overnight success, Lauren? How are you handling all the overnight success? That was so much fun. And, it was born of me not really being crazy about doing the weather on Channel 13, which was the other station owned by Fox. And I'll spare you the long setup to why Fox owned two stations, but they did. They acquired another station. And when they did, I ended up having to do what I was doing on one station on another station too, and not getting paid for it. And I wasn't like one of those grumbling, bitter guys, but on the inside, I thought, God, this. I know this is not cool. So the one thing they were a little more of a rock and roll newscast. They came in with like this music and a little animation, for weather, but like a big graphic. And so I thought, maybe I can be myself a little more rock and roll, a little more rebellious. And so that was born of that. And I said to the director one night, take the music and just halfway up, just fade it up. And he said, what do you mean? I said, just take the music you normally come with it, just fade it up in the middle. It was instantly like a huge hit. And then I just got music it didn't fit with me, like heavy hip hop or whatever. Like I'm so straight and pasty white looking and acting. So it became this huge hit. And I never did it when the weather was serious, but when I wouldn't do it, even when the weather was serious, people would light up the phones going, the only reason I watch this newscast is to see Mark Thompson dance. What's going on? What's happening? And so it was funny, really, from that perspective, that it was born of this kind of resentment, and it became a thing.
Someone else who I would describe as rock and roll, rebellious, one of your good friends, and another one of my longtime idols who we talked about, Mike Darnell, on the phone. You worked with him. You described to me Batman and Robin being the dynamic, KTTV starting in news.
Mike Darnell, well, he left Fox to become president of Warner Brothers. Okay. So he's a giant. He was already a huge, if not president, some kind of president type job at Fox. But we started at this station at Fox 11 in Los Angeles, and we both wanted to do other stuff besides the news. And I had a development deal, as I say. So I had a deal for them to develop a show around me. So Mike, I don't know. I don't remember what we met in the newsroom, but we just became super fast friends. We were everything together. We did every meal together. We hang out. And they called us Batman and Robin. And I was there as he and his girlfriend. They got married, and then they had a child and all of this stuff. But Mike was a genius and is a genius. And you could tell he's a genius. I'm not a genius. I think I can work with stuff if there's a good platform there, and I think I can come up with ideas along the way. But Mike is a full-on Einsteinian kind of television gifted guy. All of these ideas that he would come up with at the network, and he was just hired. I knew a guy at the network. Here's how Mike Darnell got his job. I'll tell you this only because you are a Darnell fan. And again, this guy, everybody who we're talking about, for those who might not know, he picked up American Idol. Okay, so there's that. Okay, then we're talking about American Idol, so that there's that. But were it just that, I mean, Idol was already, as I say, it was pop Idol in Britain. Anybody might have done it. Although executives skated away from it. Mike owned it and was ready to, really lean into it. He knew it was going to be a hit. But if you go back, Alien Autopsy, all of the When Good Times Go Bad, When Good Pets Go Bad, Busted on the Job. These are the things I'm thinking of. Secrets of Magic Revealed. I mean, these were massive shows I'm describing. These were massive. And they were the beginnings of reality TV, of non-scripted television. So drama and comedy ruled prime time. And all of a sudden, this dude was coming up with this other stuff. They were clip shows sometimes, but the clips, World's Scariest Police Shootouts, World's Scariest Police Chases. I mean, they were doing massive ratings. And he truly transformed the way television was thought of. And now look at it. Reality TV is all over it. Reality TV is the coin of the realm. So Mike and I, again, met at the local station. I knew somebody at Fox who was a friend of mine, and he worked in alternative, which is stuff that's not drama and comedy. So usually alternative is specials like award shows, like the Billboard Music Awards would be a classic alternative thing, or a New Year's Eve show, or a Christmas special, stuff like that. So it's not really a front burner kind of thing, but they do a lot of stuff. But let's face it, prime time was certainly not where they would show up a lot. Mike, my buddy said, I've got an opening for a manager here. Manager's kind of a lower level executive. And can you recommend anybody? I said, he's going to blow up your whole department. And he's a genius. I remember this conversation. Mike went in and met him. And then I remember the executive called me and said, dude, I like him. Just one question. Is he cool? I said, dude, he is the coolest. Are you kidding? It was like he wanted to make sure that he would play well with other kids. And sure enough, Mike went over there. He was hired. And then that whole department went from back burner to front burner. But all the stuff that I described that were all those huge hits, he had to fight for them. Imagine having to fight to get hits on the air because they're not used to it. Family Guy. I remember seeing they call it an animatic. It's like a rough sketch. And they were charcoal sketches of Family Guy, just still sketches, okay? So still charcoal sketches of Family Guy, but the full track of about 8 or 9 minutes of Family Guy. And it was so funny that I was literally rolling on the floor. I mean, people say, rolling on the floor, laughing. I was in his office, Darnell's office. I was literally rolling on the floor laughing. So my association with him got me sort of a peek at all the stuff he was working on. And so Family Guy was one of the things that he believed in and greenlit. So he's an amazing executive. And there was a great Vanity Fair piece that was done some time ago, a long time ago, actually, but it did a nice drill down and talked to all of his friends, myself included, and they kind of talk about Darnell. But Darnell's mentioned so prominently now, and all these different books about, you can't speak about reality TV and about network television and the transformation of it without looking at Mike Darnell's work. So yeah, that's how I met him, though, just out of he was a librarian, believe it or not, at the local station. Yeah.
The brilliance of your hosting, the combination of the shows that he would come up with and the specials, and you narrating When Good Pets Go Bad.
No one is safe. Not even Santa Claus. When good pets go bad.
You getting to be the announcer when Robbie Knievel jumped the Grand Canyon.
He's hit the gap. He makes it. He's off the bike.
How exciting was that to be on camera for these things?
Yeah, that was terrific. As usual, you're so good at picking out things that are like real powerful moments. And I think that there were a lot in those Knievel jumps. First of all, it's live network television, and I love that. But it's tricky, a lot of stuff can happen, and it's live. I remember, so my favorite jump was his building to building jump in Las Vegas. So he's jumping from the top of one building to another building that's not quite lined up perfectly. It was, the reason I liked it was not only because of the difficulty or seriousness of the jump, but also because of the lighting. It's dusk there in Las Vegas, and as we go on the air for the East Coast, and so the lights of the Strip are in the background. It was just magic.
He's made it! Robbie Knievel has achieved what many thought was impossible tonight.
Then, of course, the Grand Canyon jump, and then what happened with that was crazy.
Oh my God, the snow.
Yeah, it was wet and it snowed the night before, and he's got these ramps that he's got to take off from and land. And, if there's any skid at all or anything, he's going to buy it. He's going to die. So there was all this question. They tried to dry out the ramps. They had all these blowers and stuff. They literally built a city, a production city almost in or small town anyway, in this remote area near the Grand Canyon rim. Anyway, so the dawn breaks and they're doing all that stuff and drying it. And now, we're doing that show. It's scheduled on the network, 5:00, and it's a big event show. And 5:00 on the West Coast, obviously, and East Coast to 8:00. And right before we go on, it might have been like a half hour before we go on, this executive from Fox walks in. His name is Tom Sheets. Tom was number 2 to Mike Darnell's number 1. Mike was back in Hollywood. So Tom walks into this trailer, like a production trailer, and it's just myself and Tom. And he said, "Mark, got to tell you something. Robbie's not going to jump. Ramps are too wet, and he doesn't feel comfortable. And I can't make him jump, and I don't know, maybe he shouldn't jump. You can't say he's not going to jump, because if you say he's not going to jump, nobody's going to watch the rest of the hour." So he said, "But you cannot say he is going to jump, because if you say he is going to jump, you're lying to the audience, and we can't have that." And then he just paused, and he tapped me on the side of the shoulder, and he said, "So good luck."
Show business.
Which I just loved. So I did a bunch of things like there'd be a shot of Robbie in his trailer, and they would zoom in on his face, and I would say, "There he is, Robbie Knievel. One can only imagine what's going through his mind at this moment. We'll be back." And that was, so I haven't committed to one way or the other. You had to kind of completely play that whole hour like that. We did a massive share. I think we did a 25 or 22 share. And I saw the president of ABC at some weird wrestling event that week that I just happened to be in attendance for. And he came over to me and said, "I can't believe it. You did a weather report for an hour and you guys did a 22 share? That's insane." Those jumps were hot back then. Those big event specials were hot. And it was live, and that just makes everything more exciting.
That jump was literally the format for the early American Idol results show. Let's draw this out. How are we going to fill 22 or 44 minutes of, okay, now you're going home?
That's a great point and a great parallel, and always the challenge. When do you pay off what you're doing? When are you going to do the big reveal, the thing that you've teased, the thing that everybody wants to hear? When they did a special about LeBron James announcing where he was going to go play from, the Cavs to wherever, they drag out the entire thing across, right? He doesn't make the announcement till the end of the hour or whatever. And that but you have to sustain your audience so they don't resent it. That's what Idol does so well. They have the performances. Historically, they've done so well with performances, guest spots, all kinds of conversation with the Idol contestants. So you don't really feel like it's a throwaway. You don't feel cheated in general, I think. Yet we as the audience know that they're only going to make the announcement probably toward the very end, right?
Oh, yeah. Any final memories? You mentioned being on set, so you've gotten to know the judges and maybe Ryan, just people that work on the show. What are your final thoughts about American Idol?
I knew Ryan from the radio. meaning I've been on his radio show a few times, and I felt always, and I still kind of feel this way. Ryan's an immensely talented host and performer, but I think he's even more talented as a radio guy. Anyway, I knew him from the radio, and I always liked him, and but he got so big, I almost felt like I was just like another guy in the orbit. It's a little weird when somebody becomes so famous, so full of money, and there was like a film crew following him everywhere. I would always say, "Hey, Ryan, what's going on? We're filming." And so I would always try to poke fun at that a little, but he's clearly just a massive talent. But I'll tell you the most interesting thing that happened as a result of these people I didn't know. So I didn't know Paula. I knew already. Randy, I didn't know, and Simon, I didn't know. I loved Simon. Simon was the guy who I felt like, wow, this is a guy I can really speak with. And we were both single at the time, and we would always talk about various romance opportunities. But when Simon asked me, and this used to happen all the time, to sit in the audio booth with him during rehearsal and listen to the Idol contestants, to listen to their performances in rehearsal. You'd often hear, I heard you in rehearsal and you really got better with what you did at they listen to those rehearsals. Now, Simon, in the beginning, in the first, I'm going to say 4 seasons, he was the only one who used to listen to rehearsal, pretty much. I mean, he used to regularly listen to rehearsal. So we'd sit in the audio booth and I'd sit there with him because he asked me to, which is kind of the wild thing. And he'd say, "Mark, what did you think?" And I'm like, geez, I just feel so like unqualified to say whatever I'm about to say, because it might influence or whatever. And I remember trying to say things sort of generic, but I'd say that's where I felt like, wow, you're part of this thing now in a way that's both fun and important. I mean, important in you know what I mean? So I have a Simon thing. Where's my Simon? Don't I have that?
I think there's a hint of desperation. I really do.
Yeah, that's it. There you go.
Brilliant.
A bunch of my Simon stuff.
It's about as bad as it can possibly get.
Yeah. Anyway, but I loved Simon. Just loved him, and I loved that he was now Simon's and they tease him about it, right? Now Simon's a rah-rah guy. Back then he was, you got to take your medicine guy, right? He's like, let me tell you the real truth here, right? So
a bit pub singer-ish, I thought.
Yeah, right. Anyway, so that's my Simon. That was probably the greatest thing, I think.
Mark, the fact that you're here, we're meeting. I can remember the first time I heard, "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your judges," and would think about that voice because obviously being a podcaster, aspiring producer, etc., I won't go on about myself, but I have to only take a second about myself just to express the gratitude and wanting to recognize everything that you guys have brought to entertainment, because we don't always see the voices. We don't always understand what Mike Darnell does, what Nigel and Ken do, and what Simon does off camera. That story you told, it's so important. So I hope that we can tell some stories here on Idol Insiders to give people a glimpse into everything that all of you in this business do, not just for American Idol, for any show, movie, the radio, podcast. Speaking of which, the Mark Thompson Show on YouTube, if you want to mention that really quickly, where can they watch and listen? Any thoughts about that?
Thank you so much, first of all, for saying all that you've said. And I look forward to future episodes of this podcast. And I do a news-centric and politics-centric show. I do a lot of politics commentary for the TYT network. So think of it sort of in that realm, but with a little more fun. So we have politics. I'll do some serious stuff. I'll talk to Pulitzer Prize winners and all the rest, but then we do some fun, kind of just funky stuff too. So anyway, that's a 2-hour show. It's live every day from 11 to 1 on the West Coast, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. on the West Coast. But I encourage you to check it out. It's called The Mark Thompson Show, which, yeah, we didn't spend a long time on the name.
TheMarkThompsonShow.com and GetMarkMerch.com, right? So much awesome.
GetMarkMerch.com. Come on. You are the best. You really, thank you so much for being so supportive. I honestly, I think you know what I've done on a granular level more than I do, but I'm glad I could come by and share a couple of stories with you.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate your time once again. Last question. Any advice, and this is one of those bigger questions, kind of like when I asked you about the big break, for somebody who's looking for that break, wants to get their foot in the door, as you said, one thing they can walk away with?
The door has changed so much since I started, but I think some of the same things still apply. Do the work, have the work, be ready for the opportunity, and then identify the opportunity. And then I think the route to opportunity, I think fortunately, has taken out a lot of different aspects to what might get done. So, for example, this that you're doing right now and that we're doing, this is real work. You know, you researched it, you had a guest on, you had some clips. This guy took seriously having this guest on, and he kind of had a plan for having the guest on and what he actually saw as the arc of his time with the guest. That means something. You know, those are skills, and those are skills that you develop. So I think now more than ever, you have a chance, all of us, you know, those who are trying to get a foot into the media door, I'm just talking about the media door now, have a chance to do that in ways that you just didn't have an opportunity before. For example, making a movie. You can make your own movie now. You don't need a lot of money. You don't need film stock. You don't need a big crew. You have these incredible digital opportunities to essentially memorialize whatever you're doing. And so literally you can make a movie, a feature-length film on your iPhone or Android. I mean, that's an opportunity, but you have to have a plan. You know, you have to have a script or a story or an improv arc that you want to. So I see a lot of different ways to get your foot in the door, but I think they're all preceded by or accompanied by doing the work. So that's what I would say.
Well, I'm taking note of all of that. I cannot thank you enough. Mark Thompson, everybody.
So much fun, man. On the next episode,
I had to sell them on this idea. Tons of people were going to come. There's great publicity. These judges are going to come. No one knew who they were. He was like, let's build a show, find the audience that way for this Idol winner that I'm going to put money into. The live shows in Hollywood and auditions, they all were special and challenging in their own way.
Make sure to go to idleinsiders.com for all the info on this podcast. You can follow Instagram and TikTok at Idle Insiders Podcast. I want to thank you so much for checking out this very first episode. I've been your host, Bennett Shear. Now you be the judge. Leave a like, comment, rating, review. Tell me what you think of Idle Insiders. I'll see you next time.